Maybe I'll just angle it a little more. Oh, it's like inverted. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're very excited tonight to have
there
Karen
it goes.
Potter with the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project. She knows so much about energy efficiency, about how to save energy, which also saves water, reduces pollution, and saves a lot of money as well. And tonight she's going to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act. But, Karen is very generous with her time. She's always willing to talk to people, help them learn about what's going on with energy efficiency, how they can save money. She's a fierce advocate at the Arizona Corporation Commission and the Salt River Project. And we're always advocating for energy efficiency, but supporting clean energy overall and really supporting programs that will help us reduce our climate harming pollution. So anyway, without further ado, please welcome Karen Potter.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sandy. I really appreciate the invite to connect with you all tonight. And since we have kind of a more intimate crowd, what I'd love to do, this doesn't have to be super formal. We can just go through some of the content. And if you guys have questions or if you want to make a comment on something, just let me know. We can just kind of go through this, together. So, and thank you all who are joining the live stream as well. I'm happy to answer your questions too when they come up. Next slide. So tonight, I was just going to do a quick overview of SWEEP as an organization, and then I want to get into the heart of it. What is the Inflation Reduction Act? I'm sure you've heard of it and heard about it in various forms. Then we're going to cover the home efficiency rebate programs. This is one aspect of the overall home energy rebates. The names are very similar. I will give you all a warning up front, so it makes it extremely confusing. So I do apologize for that. I did not pick the names. The next program we're also going to cover after that is the Home Electrification and Appliance Rebate Program, otherwise known as HERE. And that's the part where if you're interested in installing a heat pump or getting heat pump water heaters in your home, that's the program you're going to be interested in. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the electric vehicle tax credits, how they're different than the previous tax credits that had a cap on number of vehicles per manufacturer. And then we're going to talk a little about what you can do at least today to start saving energy and start saving money. And, what are things you can do to make your home a little bit more improved for many reasons, whatever your motivation is. Next slide. So just really quickly, so SWEEP is one of 5 different regional energy efficiency organizations across the United States. We focus on promoting and advancing energy efficiency policies, programs, anything pertaining to utility demand-side management programs, clean transportation, building electrification, and industrial decarbonization. So anything at the intersection of decarbonizing our economy as a whole, that's what we focus on. But I often prefer to have conversations down at the kitchen table level, if you will, because I think these are kitchen table issues. And these are things that impact all of us on a day-to-day. So that's where I love to focus. So just in a nutshell, you might be asking, what is the Inflation Reduction Act if you are not familiar with this program? At the highest level, because we won't cover all of the nuts and bolts of this piece of legislation, because we would be here for hours. So we're going to focus just on the consumer-facing programs that can help you to make your home run a little bit better and to help you save money and save money electric bills and to reduce energy overall. So the Inflation Reduction Act creates opportunities for communities to invest in clean energy and reduce their energy consumption. And maybe just a quick mic check if people on the stream can hear me okay. If anyone can give us a thumbs up to make sure that's working.
That's better.
Is that better? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized, I'm a lot softer than I usually am. Okay, great. So there are many components of the Inflation Reduction Act that are, focused on, consumer-facing programs. There's a lot that's more focused on, businesses and, competitive grants, but we're going to focus on the rebates and tax credits that you might be most interested today. So first is, whether there's opportunities from the Inflation Reduction Act to weatherize your homes, while making it, highly efficient from an electrification perspective, which in, Arizona's climate zone, it's a lot cheaper to actually go fully electric than to have gas and electric in your home. So this is a great opportunity to do the full weatherization and electrification bundling at the lowest cost probably possible for any federal programs that we've ever had so far. We're also going to talk a little bit about electric vehicle credits and how the Inflation Reduction Act is going to make electric vehicle purchases cheaper overall. Then we're going to provide some resources. The Inflation Reduction Act provides resources and opportunities for rooftop solar and home energy storage. I decided to not focus on that as much today because the energy efficiency side is so complex. But if you want to tackle some of the solar, offerings as well, we can provide some more materials after this conversation today. And also overall, the Inflation Reduction Act is providing meaningful investments in affordable housing and multifamily units. There's a lot of provisions in the home energy rebate programs that help to, one, protect consumers if their apartment is going through a significant retrofit and their property managers might have an inkling to try to increase their rent or something like that. There are some specific consumer protections embedded within the Inflation Reduction Act that will prevent that from happening. So people in affordable housing or multifamily housing units can be rest assured if they are a renter that if they go through this process, they're not going to be kicked out of their home. And, in a certain, it believes it's up to 2 to 3 years before, property manager or owner can change, the rent structure with the home. So I'll leave it to there for now. Next slide. So, these programs are probably going to sound very similar to you after I cover each of them, so bear with me, but there are some very critical differences between the Home Efficiency Rebates Program and the HERE program. So the first one, the Home Efficiency Rebates Program, this is specifically focusing on providing you cash back. And what I mean by cash back is these programs are point of sale. So rather than, having to pay for everything up front and then, sending something into the government and getting a rebate back or sending something to your utility, you're getting those savings up front off the bill. And that's really helpful because how many people have, thousands of dollars just to spend on upfront costs for these renovations for their home? Most don't. So this is what's going to make it a lot easier for people to access. In the Home Efficiency Rebate Program, it can cover a lot of different types of technologies, but I kind of consider everything that helps to make your building envelope, the structure of the building, more efficient overall and helps to reduce overall energy savings. So that can be anything from weatherization renovations, adding insulation, which is huge overall, reducing your consumption, and installing more efficient appliances like heat pump clothing dryers. There can be a lot of different things you can do with this, but overall, the goal is to lower energy burden for limited income households and disadvantaged communities, and also to support a transition to a clean energy economy. Because at the end of the day, we can't get to our decarbonization goals unless we weatherize first. A lot of people like to talk about, electrifying and going solar, and these are all very critical and we need to do this. But if we're going to do this in a way that maintains affordability for everyone, we have to weatherize first. And that's what the Home Efficiency Rebates Program focuses on first, to kind of provide that as an incentive and put the priorities in the right order, if that makes sense. So Arizona state government has some options with this program of how they're going to offer it and how they're going to try to achieve different pathways of energy savings. So essentially what that means is they are going to make dollars available for both multifamily and single family homes to conduct these home upgrades, and the savings, depending on the path that's chosen, and I'll cover what I mean by that in a moment. But the options are for energy savings per home of up to 15% to 34%, depending on the income you have in your home. and it's going to depend on the method used. And depending on the method, essentially, the more savings that are potentially available to you, it is likely that the more data you have to kind of use and provide as access to kind of engage in the program. And again, the range is going to depend on the type of building sought and the type of built infrastructure sought for the retrofitted work. Next slide, please. So this is what I mean by pathway. And this is probably going to be very confusing, and you don't have to, have this all memorized tonight or anything, but this is kind of a breakdown of what I mean by, choose your own adventure when it comes to this program. So depending on whether or not you're in a single family home, a multi-family building, or low income home or dwelling unit, there are different options for the range of energy savings that's available to you from the Home Efficiency Rebates Program. So let's say, for example, if you're in a single family home and you want to get at least 15% energy savings measured, you have to go through a particular metric, which is dollars per kilowatt saved, equivalent of to $2,000, or 20% energy savings, or 50% of the project cost. It's a little bit easier to understand at 50% of project costs usually. So that's usually the metric that people use. And the percentage that you have available to you is going to change depending on your area median income. And that's going to change depending on your zip code and, kind of the aggregate of what people make in your neighborhood. So 80% of your AMI, or area median income, is going to change depending on where you live. But essentially the idea is, based on this area median income, there is this incentive for contractors to get at higher energy savings levels if they target and focus on disadvantaged communities. So that's really exciting, because oftentimes weatherization work that focuses on limited income housing is often the work that is, the most challenging to get contractors to do and complete. So there is a bit of an incentive and nudge in the industry to make sure that these homes are not left behind. And I'll just leave this for you for later if you want to kind of explore a little bit. This is a lot of content here, and I know it's going to take some time because there's a lot of different pathways here, and depending on which building you have, there's a lot of options. So next slide. Oh, and one thing I will note too, really quickly, so eligibility of access and point of sale for this money can be available either directly as the consumer, so the person in the home, or if you're a property manager or a contractor. So you can designate who, is taking care of this per household, if that makes sense.
If you do a point of sale, how do I do 80 or 100%?
So there are,
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so Amanda asked a question of if you're interested in the program and you're within like 80% AMI, how do you, show your income level? So there's a number of different ways that, like the IRS, for example, has this aggregate of area median income, which kind of uses data from like the federal poverty guidelines, and it does it based on like geographic targeting, and it's a little bit of a data intensive process. But as a consumer, you don't have to do that. There are a number of resources where you can just type in your website and you can see where you fall. And we can cover some of those resources later.
You would bring that to you when you buy something? You would bring something when you buy a product?
You could potentially, yes. Mm-hmm. So one thing I wanted to know here is, you might be thinking, okay, well, how can I get started with this? There might be a process to accessing these federal grants or these federal rebates. What can I start doing now? There's a lot of, depending on what utility you have, the utilities offer energy efficiency programs that align with the Home Efficiency Rebate Program. So the number of technologies that you see on this slide can also be accessed from the Home Efficiency Rebate Program. So everything from home checkups, so doing an energy audit, which you can either have a contractor do, or you could even, there's a more basic kind of do-it-yourself option for energy for home checkups that I would recommend. Efficient construction, this kind of goes into, the different types of values we use in building homes, the kind of materials that are used, and there's different grades of efficiency that make a home, more more efficient overall, and also make it easier for you to save money. So usually the newer the home, I think this kind of makes sense, right? The newer the home, the more efficient it usually is. Demand response programs. So these are programs that you can access from your utility. If you're interested in signing up and you have a smart thermostat, you can essentially get a credit on your bill to allow the utility to opt you into a program where you can participate in events during usually the summer, where everyone is using their washer, their laundry machine, everyone's cooking at the same time, and demand is at its highest on the system, and the utility system is stressed. The utilities would contact you and say, hey, would you be willing to allow us to turn down your thermostat by 2 degrees? And they always make sure it's within safety measures of what's comfortable in a home. And if you accept that event, or if you opt into that, then essentially, you can get some credit for that on your bill. So not everyone does this, but it is a helpful way if you have that flexibility. But if you don't have that flexibility in your home, that's totally okay. There's a lot of other options as well. Appliance upgrades, refrigerants are not only a huge energy sink in the home, but they're also a huge source of greenhouse gas emissions as well. And if you can update, and swap out your old refrigerator with something more efficient, it's a big boost from a climate perspective. Also, AC tune-ups, super efficient HVAC like heat pumps and high efficiency cooling units. Shade screens are a very easy one. You put on the outside of your window, and it helps to reduce how much ambient light and how much heat is coming through your windows. So it's very helpful, and a super easy thing to do. I think you can go to Home Depot and get a shade screen for like $20 or something like that. They're very cheap. And also shade trees. Shade trees are really important for providing very natural cooling into our home and the shading that we need. But it's also, from an equity perspective, really important to have shade trees so that people have refuge when it's at our hottest time of the year. So they're really critical for many reasons. Next slide. So I mentioned the do-it-yourself energy audit earlier, doing a home checkup. There's a number of things you can do in your home by yourself. So I would recommend, locating and sealing air leaks, consider ventilation opportunities. How many people, be honest, actually change their air filter every 2 months or so? Okay, some people are honest. That's okay. It's that's one option. If you actually stick to a schedule and you have a high quality air filter, that can provide significant savings to your home as well. So I definitely recommend that, especially in the summer when your system is working a lot harder to keep the home cooler. Also, lighting, appliances, and electronics. Are people familiar with the term vampire energy? Okay. So for those who are not, essentially, when you keep your appliances plugged in to your home, even if they're turned off, they are still consuming energy. And you might be wondering why. Essentially, anything that's connected to an outlet is still pulling electrons from the grid, even if it's not being used currently. It might be very low, it might be a very small amount of kWh, but it's still pulling a little bit. And that little bit over time, every single day, can really add up over the course of a month, many months, a year. So it's helpful. And I don't know, I'm a little crazy about it, but I always turn off like my coffee machine and everything like that every night, just because it does add up. And yes, so both SRP and APS, sorry about that, both APS and SRP provide online building energy credit assessment. I'm going to take this off the stand. I think that makes it better. Okay. Great. So now we're going to dig into the electric appliance portion of the presentation. So home electrification and appliance rebates. This I think, is the easiest program to understand from the Inflation Reduction Act when it comes to the energy efficiency rebates. The home electrification and appliance rebates, here, again for short. Again, I did not come up with these names, but we'll use what we can. So this program gives consumers direct access, again, to rebates for the purchase and install of a high efficient electric projects, or all home electric projects. So that includes a number of technologies. That includes anything from fully electric heating and cooling to heat pump water heaters, to wiring in the home and insulation. Yes, sir?
maybe I'm misunderstanding you. So I need to get a new dishwasher. If I go and a dishwasher's $2,000, I can get. I'm 150% of median income. I could get an instant tax credit or rebate.
Potentially. So the dishwasher would probably more fall under the line of the program before, the home efficiency rebates, because, and this is again why it can be confusing, there are appliances, or essentially any appliances that don't fall under the home electrification and appliance rebates will likely fall under the homes program. I know that sounds very confusing, but if the specific technology is not listed in that second bullet there, unfortunately, it's not included in the home electrification and appliance rebates. However, that doesn't mean you don't have options for replacing your dishwasher. I would just go through the homes or that first program that I covered in order to access that money.
But you go like to an appliance dealer and they would just deduct it off the top line cost.
Exactly. So that's the beauty of a point of sale rebate, and that's something my organization has been advocating for years, because it makes it so much easier for the consumer. You can just go to a Home Depot if you're gonna, get a certain appliance. If they can just remove that amount from your bill before you buy, so it makes it a lot easier, a lot more straightforward. So no one likes to send things in the mail afterward to get a check, mysteriously 6 months later or something like that. We want to make it as easy as possible for people. So when it comes to the structure of income eligibility, I think it's also a little bit easier on the home electric appliance rebate side. So households with income less than 80% of the area median income can cover 100% of project costs. Yes, that you heard that right, 100%. And that's very rare. That almost never happens for rebates like this. But with that being said, households between 80 to 150% of AMI can cover 50% of project costs. So the state of Arizona is going to have a decision to make when it comes to how much money they want to cover per household. They could go a direction where they want to cover 100% of project costs, or as close to 100% as possible, but less people will likely go through the program. Or they can have cover it at a lower AMI level and cover less of the project costs, but more people, unique people or households will be able to go through the program. So that's going to be that's a hotly contested debate right now in the energy efficiency world. And I'm curious, if we talk later and get a discussion, what you guys think from the policy perspective would make the most sense. Okay, so overall, the home electrification and appliance rebates, it does limit per household to $14,000 in rebates that are available for you, but that's a pretty good pot of money. And depending on the shape of your home currently, that could get you very far. Next slide. So this is the breakdown I wanted to show you all in terms of how much per appliance and where that usually is in your home. I'll send out these slides because I know it might be a little bit hard to read on the screen. But essentially what this says here, so for heat pump, HVAC, and maybe I'm assuming this, but I should ask first. Does anyone not know what HVAC stands for? Okay, cool. Oh, I don't know.
Ventilation, air conditioning.
Okay, good. Thank you. He's got it. I thought I saw a hand, but maybe it was just a stretch.
Yeah.
Thank you. So for heat pumps again, so that's going to be $8,000 as the maximum. Unfortunately, 2 years ago, that probably could have covered the entire cost of the heat pump and a significant part of the labor. Unfortunately, in the last 2 years, the price has increased for labor costs and, from some other components of this. So it's kind of debatable how much or how far this 8,000 can go, and it will depend also on your geographic area. So electric wiring upgrades. This is really critical if you're someone who's interested in getting an electric vehicle and you don't have an electric vehicle charger in your house right now, and you're interested in getting one installed. You can utilize this money so to do electric wiring upgrades in your home and to make it really easy in order to install an EV charger when the time is right. And also, I'll just add insulation and air sealing is on here, as well as a few other resources. I just want to single out insulation right now for a moment. Insulation, when paired with electrification, is a really powerful combination of specific actions or activities you can do within a home to maximize energy savings and to reduce a significant amount of greenhouse gas emissions at the same time. So, energy efficiency is one of those things where it can be kind of confusing because it's thousands of technologies, right? And it's you have to kind of think, well, what's actually going to be worth my time? But I will say, if you can kind of combine insulation, if you don't have it in your home, I highly recommend it. Get it as soon as you can. And if you can use this rebate in combination with getting a high electric heating and cooling, your money will go a lot farther. Next slide. Okay, so I did want to cover the electric vehicle tax credits for a moment because a lot of people are going to ask me, when you can access it, how you can access it, and how is it going to be eligible or other qualifications. So the IRA did approve many types of EV tax credits. I'm going to focus tonight just on the consumer side. So the light duty vehicles and the used EVs, the tax credits are going to be available for again, consumers through December 31st of 2032. So just keep that in your mind if you are trying to kind of think out long term in terms of when you want to buy your electric vehicle. I would just keep this date in mind. But I want to cover a couple of components of this. So first, for light duty vehicles, they can still get up to the $7,500 per vehicle until that 2032 date. There are some caveats to that though, so oh joy. In order to qualify, the vehicle has to meet requirements for critical mineral sourcing, and battery components must be extracted or processed in the United States or North America. There are a number of reasons for this. If you're interested in electric vehicles, there have been a lot of concerns from people in terms of the sourcing of the rare earth minerals that are used in the battery components. And this is a strategy to help over time to eliminate some of the dependency of electric vehicles on rare earth minerals. Because if you can do most of the sourcing in the United States, you can increase the technology over time and have advancements in battery chemistry, you can rely less on those rare minerals and use some things that are more abundant in the United States. Also, starting in 2024, qualifying vehicles cannot have any battery components or critical minerals sourced from China. I wonder why they didn't have other countries that also have rare earth minerals, but that's what the law says. And again, I think some of this is just to boost some of the domestic manufacturing, the domestic processing for these vehicles, and to get more electric vehicles out in the lots and get them available for customers. So for first-time buyers, also, there is a used EV tax credit, which is really exciting. And EVs will be eligible for federal tax credits of up to $4,000 or 30% of the sales price, so whichever one is lower. And the sales price of a qualified EV cannot exceed $25,000, and the vehicle must be at least 2 years old. So when you think about the kind of used EVs that are on the market right now, that might limit some of your options. That could be, perhaps a used Tesla with a lot of miles on it. It might be a first or second gen Nissan Leaf. There are some options. And something actually recently that just came out that Chevy introduced with Chevy Bolt, you might have heard that that they're reintroducing that vehicle. And that's really exciting because the Chevy Bolt was actually the cheapest electric vehicle that General Motors had to offer. And they are helping to do some battery swapping for some of those early generation Nissan Leafs that have the battery degradation issues. So that could be, a great option. I've seen Nissan Leafs on Craigslist for anywhere from $6,000 to $12,000. So this could be a great option because private sale is potentially available as well. There are some qualifications for that, but that could be an option for you. And with that level of tax credits, incentives, it makes EVs more of a dream and within reach for all people, which is what we want. So the question you probably all have, how can you access these rebates and tax credits from these three programs? There's a bit of a caveat. I'm sorry about that. But for the first program, the home efficiency rebates program and the home electrification and appliance rebate programs, they're essentially on the same track. Even though they're two different programs, I kind of split it up so you can see. They're essentially kind of the same track of programs, even though they're two separate ones. The Office of Resiliency in the state of Arizona, that's the office that Governor Hobbs created in February earlier this year. They are the designee, if you will, that the federal government has authorized to be the person to put the application together on behalf of the state government for these programs. So now that the application process is open, the Office of Resiliency is starting to put together a general outline of how they want these programs to flow and what's going to be the best bang for their buck for the most amount of people in the state. So with that, the deadline is January 31st of 2025, but I can guarantee you from conversations with the office, they want to roll this out next year. And they're working to get these available early 2024 so that people can start accessing these benefits by summer next year. Because there's always, a risk with contractors getting extremely busy over summer because there are so many emergency, air conditioning burnouts where people, it's an emergency situation and, they need cooling in their home immediately. So sometimes contractors get extremely busy and booked up. So the goal is to get these offerings available for customers and for all residents before that summer period to make it a little easier. One thing I do just want to preface, because I'm concerned that there might be potentially some predatory scams already out there in terms of, you might be getting random text messages saying you can now access the IRA if you're a authorized user and you live in Arizona. We've all seen those ads, right? They're kind of all over the place and it's misleading because these rebates are not available yet. And we need the Office of Resiliency to submit their application first. Once that's available, there's going to be a full rollout to make this really easy and accessible for everyone. But I just wanted to preface that because if you're getting those predatory calls, text messages, or emails, or whatever it is, I just wanted you to have some information in advance so you don't fall victim to that. So for the electric vehicle tax credits, so these are available in beginning of 2024. And taxpayers can transfer their tax credits to dealers directly, which will help them to receive the credit as a rebate at the point of sale. So that idea of point of sale again, so you don't have to wait months and months and months to get that money back. It makes it a lot faster process for everyone. And it's going to be available until December 31st, 2032, like I said earlier. So you can start planning now for when you want to make that purchase and when you want to access this credit. That's a great question. So for people on the live stream, the question was, so should we just wait to do any of these upgrades until the Office of Resiliency puts their programs together and they get approval from the federal government? I would say no. What I would do first is that first step is, do a home energy audit. You can do kind of the simple steps like I suggested of the do-it-yourself version. But if you're really serious about starting, to the savings, get the benefits of energy efficiency and to help to contribute to reduce pollution for everyone, I would recommend starting now with the offerings that are available from either your utility or from your city. So often cities have rebates as well that you can access. They're not at point of sale though, so I do want to preface that to have expectations set. So it might take a little longer to access, but they are available for a lot of the same technologies and appliances. And also all of the utilities in Arizona, all the major utilities in Arizona have a comprehensive demand side management portfolio for residential customers. So they can start accessing a lot of these technologies now. It's just the amount of the total project that would be covered might not be the total project. The goal is to try to get as close to covering the equipment and labor costs as possible so we can make this really affordable for people and really make this one of the most historic opportunities to weatherize and make homes efficient as possible. Make it the best opportunity we've had in recent times. So that's what we're working towards. So I would start with those more localized steps before the federal programs are available.
We had a question online.
Yeah.
They're asking about dishwashers, if dishwashers qualify.
Yeah, that's a great question. So they are virtually not on the list for the HERE program. It's like the home electric appliance rebates. However, if there's not specific appliances that are on the high efficiency side, they should be available on the other side. So the home efficiency rebate programs. See, even I mess up the names because they're so similar. I hope that helps. Any other questions? You can throw anything at me if you want.
So when in doubt, just make sure you see them listed on whatever the program is, right?
Correct.
The appliance.
Yes. And that's going to be made available. So I envision likely what the state is going to do once they get approval from the Department of Energy for their programs. They're going to build out a website that is very accessible for everyone. It's going to list out the technologies available. It's going to list out based on your area median income and where you live and some other kind of qualifying information, what you're eligible for and the amount that you're eligible for. And they're working towards, or one of the things that SWEEP is doing right now is trying to work towards building a master contract list. So no matter where you are in the state, you can punch in your zip code and get a list of, accredited, highly verified, highly skilled contractors that can do this work for you and are already ready to go to make sure that these rebates are rolled out.
And how do you access that information?
It's being built right now.
Okay.
I'm sorry it's not ready yet. I wish it was, but a lot of folks are working on the back end to start getting that available. However, if you want to start finding contractors in your area today, both APS and SRP have a public trade ally network list where you can go directly to, if you want to Google, APS Trade Ally Network. They have a website where you can punch in your zip code, the area that you need serviced, and they'll show you a full list of contractors that are already pre-verified and have the accreditations too, right? So that's the biggest thing I want to stress is always get a contractor that knows what they're doing and can back up their training and knowledge with the price that they're estimating and quoting you as well.
Rebates for non-income qualified people.
Yes. So if you, sorry about that. The microphone goes in and out, so I'm sorry. So the area median income, that doesn't necessarily mean limited income. It's kind of a sliding scale to get a sense of the type of need in a community. So, I mean, and as I said earlier, in one community, 80% AMI can be, the most low income households in a particular area. In other zip codes, it could be very affluent neighborhoods. So it's going to be extremely geographically focused to ensure that the right people are getting access to the program and getting the most help possible.
So the median income you think is based on zip codes?
It is based on income information. So, but there's a component of it that's based on census tract data. So it has a compiling of IRS information with your personal income history that the federal government has in combination with geospatial data, so they can get a sense of based in your area what 80% in aggregate of everyone in that particular area, what that would look like in order to make it as
Well, I mean, like if
specific
you
as
take
possible.
Phoenix as an example, if you're over on 52nd Street in Camelback, your median, that zip code's probably 5 times higher than it is right here.
Exactly.
So but still.
So the scale, and that's why there's a scale to these projects, right? So, and you can do, that 80% to 150 of AMI, depending on in a particular neighborhood, subdivision, or zip code, census tract, whatever kind of boundary you want to put. You can make that very specific. So you can either make it super accessible for anyone. You don't really want to make it like income verified, or you can, make it, extremely detailed with a very small eligibility. So only the most, the lowest income, of course, of the poor families can access it. So that's why it can be challenging, right? Because there's a lot of options, with this. So the state's going to have to really contend with how can we access or give access to the most amount of people and cover as much of the total project's cost as possible. That's kind of the combination that organizations like mine and a lot of people in the industry are trying to finalize to make sure we make these as available to everyone as we possibly can. Yeah.
So this is going to be like do you remember when we were too young, probably, the state would subsidize natural gas versions of your vehicles?
You're talking about the Cash Clunkers
It
program?
blew like a $3 billion hole in the state budget. This is going to be,
No,
so this is all going to be funded with federal dollars, though, right?
Oh yeah, these are federal dollars, and it's already allocated. So you might have heard some states, like the
So
state
it's
of
capped
Florida. The state of Florida, for example, they said no to all federal money. So that doesn't mean that they're going to get money back somehow because it's a federal program that's going to get back in their taxes. That just means that money is going to get allocated to another state. That's all that means. So they don't get any benefit from any of the money. So, which is, we don't want to do that, right? We want to make this as easy as possible. But I just wanted to be really honest with you all because I know this can be a little confusing, right? And there's still a lot of moving parts. But I wanted to at least give you the information you have to start planning out, what work can be done and how much is going to be covered by these programs.
And I'm sure contractors' prices will go up knowing that those rebates come.
Well, no, the reason I was asking is it really is an economic stimulus program. And this must be, so is it like $500 billion or what's the total dollar amount of the rebates?
Oh, that's a great question. The question from the audience for folks that are on the stream was, what's the total amount for these programs? It's in the billion range for the home energy rebates as a whole. So both the efficiency, whole home performance side and the highly efficient rebate side. For the state of Arizona, though, because these programs are based on allocation of population. So, they have a formula based on density and how much population, et cetera, and they come up with an allocation for each state. For Arizona's allocation, the total is approximately $153 million for these programs. So it's a significant pot of money, and this could cover a lot of homes in the state.
So my question,
Is the credit or tax rebate for electric cars, is it only if you're planning to buy a new one, or if you already bought one? Is there a credit for that?
I believe, and the question was, can you access the EV tax credits if you've already purchased an electric vehicle? Yes, but there are some details or some specifications that need to be considered. For example, if you purchased a vehicle, I believe right now when you're trying to access the tax credit, if you purchase a vehicle from a manufacturer that's hit that original, I think it was 200,000 vehicle limit of that could access the credit, then you can't access it. But you can, I believe, if it's not one of those manufacturers, submit that later to get a retroactive tax credit. I'm not a tax professional, but I can connect you with some that I've been starting to coordinate with to help give people the information they need to fill out the right paperwork so they can get that next year.
Usually on your federal income tax section, towards the bottom of the first page is a section on tax credits. And I think it's in there, and then there's probably a related schedule for that too.
Exactly. And the comment in the audience was, there's going to be a related schedule from the IRS in order to fill out the information so you can get that tax credit next year when you file your taxes. Absolutely, yes. So there are paths for that. So there are ways for people that have an EV today and we're hoping to get that tax credit, but they're like, oh, I don't know. I didn't know the process when I bought it. So what do I do now? There are ways to retroactively get that money.
Well, you can always amend your return and claim it. Like if you bought it in 2022 and you forgot to claim it, you can amend your return and claim the credit.
Are you a tax accountant? Or,
No, I used to be an investment.
I was saying you should be up here.
No, but it's like a common thing where you're like, buy it.
I know, I'm just messing with you.
Life goes on, you just forget about it, and everyone misses it. And you go to a seminar and someone says, hey, you know what I mean? So that's how you do it. That's the easy way to do it.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And I wanted to get to back to one remark that Amanda said, where the remark of contractors are going to jack up their prices in order to access That's an important point, though, and I think that kind of goes to the predatory kind of scams and some of the concerns that we're trying to make sure doesn't happen. So there is an incentive for contractors. They have a certain rebate incentive to keep levels at a particular level. So there are some baked in kind of rules for a fair play in the game for contractors, if that makes sense. And that's one of the things that if they show that they're jacking up their costs, right as these rebates hit, then that is likely to be a problem for them.
Solar hot water, there was solar hot water rebates like in the 80s, I think, and people, they saw an escalation of costs from those, and then when the rebates dropped, then they dropped the prices because so I mean, some of that's going to happen naturally, and these people are making money, but I think that's a good way to protect them.
Just say no if you think it's too high.
And I would ask them, what was
Fair
your
prices.
price a year ago?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ask them before, what was your price before a certain X date? And if they're not honest with you and can back that up, then I would make sure that they're not a sketchy contractor.
Do you think the utility lists would help that, to go through the utility lists?
Yes, so there is a level of accreditation and like processes, like background check processes as well, that the contractors on the utility list have to go through, because for the utility programs, those are in part funded by ratepayers, so they should be getting the benefit of reduced energy to help to reduce their bills overall. So they have to go through a very stringent process to ensure that they're the right fit and that they can kind of carry the utility's name as well. So that it's pretty strict.
I have, how is the Office of Resiliency going to let people know when things are available? What's the plan for really, because I feel like that is the biggest challenge, letting people know what's available and when. And then my second question is, do we need to do anything to nudge them at all?
Yeah, I yes and yes. So I think the first part of that, likely what's going to happen is next steps. There's going to be a large rollout of a very popular forward-facing website of a domain or URL that's very easy to learn. Probably something like home like azrebates.gov or something like that. Something like super easy to remember, and it's going to have all the information for opportunities for people to actually sign up and to kind of go through the process. My dream, and I'm kind of just dreaming with all of you tonight for a moment, my dream is to have a one-stop shop website where, as the customer, as the consumer, you don't have to care about these programs or where the money comes from. You just know you're eligible for a certain amount and you want the work done and you want a contractor to come next Saturday. So that's what we're working towards. We're trying to make sure that it's that simple. The challenge is all these programs are bifurcated into these smaller programs and they have different requirements, so it makes it very challenging. So we're trying to cut through that noise and make it very simple for people so that you can access what you need to improve your household and to make your family save money. So that's what we're trying to do here.
I have an older home
Yeah.
that has single pane windows. Would this cover the cost of replacing those with double pane?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, though, the utilities have a specific double pane window rebate as well. So I would go through, who's your utility provider?
APS.
Okay, yeah. So APS is a part of their home energy assessment program. If you want to, get a contractor from their ally, their trade ally network to participate, they do a full review of your home, right? They comb through everything. They see, where are areas that have energy losses, maybe hot spots in your home. They have this really cool thermal energy gun, so you can kind of see based on colors where there are hot spots in your home. They also do a thing called a blower door test, where you can see if how much is being lost from your doors. So they come through everything, right, in your home, and that will be a part of the process as well, is seeing the quality and the status of your windows. So you can access some of that today, and I definitely recommend it.
Do they charge for that to come out and do that?
So yes, there is a charge, but because it's a part of the programs that you're paid into as a customer, as a ratepayer, you can get access to rebates and incentives as well to make it a lot cheaper. So these services are available from the utilities that you can access today. And I do recommend, if you can get some of the basic weatherization, upgrades done now, and you can cover a lot of the costs from the utility rebates, I would encourage you to do some of that now, so you can focus on when these programs come out. You can be super strategic and focus on the highest kind of dollar appliances, right? So you can get the best bang for your buck when it comes to the maximum $14,000 per household. I hope that answers the question.
Great, thanks.
Got anything else? Shoot out anything to me if you
So
want.
solar isn't part of this.
Solar is a part of it. I'm just not as familiar with the solar side, and I didn't want to share information that I wasn't as privy to. But so there are rooftop solar tax credits and incentives. Actually, no, I think they're just incentives for the solar, but I can double check with you and see exactly what that breakdown looks like. And I can send it to Sandy and have it available as a resource for you.
Great, thank you.
I think it might be in some of the materials back there
Okay.
too. But yeah, we were just focusing on energy efficiency tonight.
There's a lot to
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a lot. And also, so some of the incentives for solar include home storage as well. So, when you're not using that energy, you can bank it somewhere and you can use it later.
And there's already a state tax credit too for solar.
Mhm.
I'm looking on the APS website under rebates. I don't see windows.
So they don't list out every single individual measure on their website. It can be kind of, I've asked them to make some changes.
Go get them, honey. Go get them.
But so they don't list out every single measure because it would make their website a mile long. But when you go through the program, like the energy assistance program, when you have a contractor come through your house, they'll cover all of those options for you. And also, small things too, like getting weather stripping for your house. That makes a huge difference. It's $15 at Home Depot probably. And if you don't have LED light bulbs, you should absolutely get LED light bulbs because they're super cheap now and they'll probably last like 2 decades, I swear.
Yeah.
They really do.
Except the ones in my kitchen that seem to last about a year and a half.
Uh-oh.
yeah.
Oh dear.
I got the floods and I put them in about 4 years ago, and it seems like I've replaced every year. I replace half of them, and they may be the same ones that I'm replacing, but
That might be a wiring issue, actually.
I
So
kind of
I would maybe you should, if you participate in one of these audits with a contractor, the specific incentive from the home high efficient appliances rebate, that particular electrical wiring rebate, you could access that and potentially improve that, because that could, to me, that sounds like a building envelope issue and wiring issue more than the electrical itself.
Karen, you asked about how should the government give out money or whatever, and the utilities have programs where they'll help you pay your electric bill. I would go to those first.
Yeah.
Say, give me everybody that has asked for assistance paying their electric bill, and I would go to them first and say, we have these rebates, how can we help you?
Exactly. So some of the recommendations or some of the things we've been having conversations with the utilities and also the state on is, one, getting the list of everyone that's participated in a limited income weatherization program from the utility, like you mentioned. Also, anyone who's participated in the Arizona Department of Housing's weatherization assistance program. You might not be familiar with that program because it is very, very specific about who they allow to go through the program. And it's because it really tackles the poorest of the poorest households in our country. So it's the most extreme low income households that are eligible for the program. But also you have to have a certain level of health and safety in the home before you can even go through WAP. So that means if you have like electrical or structural issues with the house that potentially make the house unsafe, you have to get that fixed before you can go through WAP. So, and that's, low-income households, they're not going to do that, right? So unfortunately that increases what's known as the deferral rate, And you know, we have some people that are kind of waiting. So what we're trying to work on now is improving what's known as rehabilitation offerings. So helping homes that have structural issues so that they can be ready to participate in weatherization.
Where does Sweep get its funding?
Just had a question for people in the live stream where Sweep gets their funding. So we have a couple different sources, one from some foundations, but also we also participate in a lot of Department of Energy projects related to building codes, transportation. So we kind of do a mix. So we're kind of half a quasi research organization, but also policy advocates. So we do a little bit of both. We dabble. Any other questions?
I guess not. Well, thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you all so much. And if anything comes up, I'll make sure Sandy can give you all the slides. You feel free to email me at any time. And we'll be rolling out more information really soon about some guidances and next steps once we have more information from the state. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to say a shout out or including?
No, I think that's
Okay, that's good enough.
Yeah, thanks again for coming. Grab some snacks on the way out. And if you haven't signed the petition to President Biden and EPA to get on with it with the rules to reduce carbon emissions from power plants and such, there's a QR code back there that you can just sign it on your phone. So, thanks.
Thank you.